So let's go ahead and get started. And actually, we're going to start today with a poll. I want to ensure that we're actually going over what you want us to go over. So as far as a question, I'm going to go ahead and, oh, not that one. I'm going to launch a poll so we can really gather and ensure that I'm going over what you're most interested in going over today. Um, let's see. Apologies on the technical difficulties. Okay, perfect. So as far as what you're aware of with Foresight AI, what are you most interested in learning about Foresight AI today? So for solving for overstock, solving for stock out, saving time reordering, saving time and guesswork on how much to order, everything or unsure. And it looks like we have some answers rolling in, a few everythings, a couple of saving time and guesswork on how much to reorder, and a little bit. Most folks are saying everything. Okay, no problem. Just wanted to make sure if there was anything extra that everybody was most interested in, I could spend a little bit of extra time on that. But I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Thank you so much for participating. I'll try to spend a little bit of extra time on the saving time and guesswork feature. Perfect. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Zoe. I'm an account manager here at Cin7. I've been here almost 2 years, but have been pretty specific on focusing on Foresight AI for the last 6 months or so. So you're in very good hands. As we move along the presentation today, feel free to utilize the Q&A function as we go along. I'll try to keep an eye on it in case any questions pop up in specific modules. That way I can answer them in real time. However, if I don't get to them, not a problem. I will get to them at the very end of the presentation. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So what is Foresight AI? So Foresight AI is a sales and inventory forecasting tool used to help you know what to order, when to order, and how much you should be ordering. Foresight AI is designed to take out the guesswork of your inventory management to give you back time in reordering, as well as capital in stock out and overstock amounts. Foresight AI can also help make crucial business decisions in what products are performing well, allowing you to dig deeper into your business strategy to become more efficient and successful. With that, let's go ahead and hop into the demo. So you may or may not have seen this new module pop up in your core dashboard. First thing that you're going to see, and probably the only thing that you'll have access to right now, is this inventory health with this awesome purple branding of Foresight AI, and it'll also show you your last updated date. And this is going to give you a big snapshot of what Foresight AI is going to solve for, right? What does your inventory health look like? So it's going to show us our stock out amount, which is, how many items out of our entire catalog are going to be stocked out. Directly correlated to that, it's going to be 25K, which is our last revenue to stock out. Just kind of note that this is actually a monthly number, so this can change obviously month to month. And then we also have our overstock value. So calculated by Foresight AI. So you may have a lot of stock in some components, but if they're fast movers, then that's not necessarily considered overstock. So this is something that Foresight AI calculates as well. And so as Foresight AI starts to work and you start to use the smart reorder and you start to move towards inventory optimization, you should see the stock out number go closer to zero, which means this number goes closer to zero, which means you're capturing that 25K of profit. And then you're also going to move this number probably likely lower as well in your overstock value, which is not only going to give you free up some capital for you, but it's also going to save you, space in your warehouse, which could ultimately save you money as well. So if we click and explore, this is going to show us our product availability report, which items are stocked out, which ones are overstocked, and which ones are stocked regularly. So when we click into this report, we'll note that we have new columns of winners and stock indicators, and the stock indicator being that stock out, overstock, or regular stock. And then we'll have winners in purple, and then I'll go through it later, but we don't necessarily have, quote, our losers or our chasers that have a branding. Mainly, we're going to be focused as you get started on your winners that are stocked out, because those are going to be your easy wins, right? They're going to be your ones that are either making you profit, or they're going, and because of that, right, we want to ensure that they're in stock. That way you can be selling and capturing that profit. So as we go through, I just want to show you this bottom example would be one that's not necessarily a winner, but it's going to be stocked regularly. So that's just kind of what that looks like. Awesome. And then if we go back, we'll go back to our regular screen. Just kind of a note, core reporting can be a bit static. So I would recommend downloading the report and filtering by winners and stock out to best target what you should be focusing on. So you'll have access to this perhaps, but anything I'm going over now is going to be fairly new. So if we scroll down, we have this overstock and understock. And if you click on any of the purple eyes for information, it'll give you a little bit extra info on what each one is. So overstock and understock is going to break down even further what category a specific SKU falls into. So you can click into each one of these for a specific report, and you can also filter by location. So that's kind of important to know because a winner in one location could be a chaser or a loser in another one. So Foresight AI is going to ensure that you have the correct stock in the correct locations. So as we're thinking about these numbers, we're thinking about, right, the importance of having this information. So did you know that excess inventory can tie up to 20 to 40% of revenue for businesses, hampering and tying up that cash flow? That's a huge amount. So that means that we should really be focusing on solving this overstock problem. If we have 664K in overstock, right, that's a huge amount of money that I don't have freed up to actually do anything with. Think about what your business can do as you're starting to think, and maybe as you purchase this, what your overstock number is and what you're going to do with that money. Also, did you know that overstock can prompt discounts of up to 50% or more, hurting profit margins? Another reason to be honing in on that overstock. And as you think about maybe having to sell through that, what are some strategies that you could use? And then thinking about in the future, not necessarily having quite that amount of overstock. And did you know that the average US retailer has only 63% inventory accuracy, mainly caused by human error? Depending on what your current restock or reordering process is, you also may be prone to slight human error. I like to call it Excel land when folks are using Excel, downloading reports from the last, couple months, 3 months, and then they're just reordering maybe a minimum order amount or a maximum order amount, or using maybe their gut feelings on how much they should be ordering. And so this is going to take out that human, or it's going to take out that gut check element as well as the time. And yeah, the overstock and understock report can help prioritize what products to focus on for maximum efficiency. And like I said, you can feel free to click into any section for the reports. So winners and losers, we're starting to get a little bit more granular with the data offering to you. So again, no more filing through Excel and creating pivot tables. This information is readily available and dynamic, meaning it's constantly changing with the micro adjustments and these syncs from Cin7 to Foresight AI technology. And it's looking at your real-time sales and AI. So you may have a pretty good idea of what your winners and your losers are, but this is going to break it down even further, and it's going to give you that real-time data of where they actually fall into, what category they fall into. So each of these is going to give you a stock value and a stock share with your winners, your chasers, and your losers. And it's really cool because it is probably going to be a little bit more dynamic as well, because it's not just winners and losers. It's also kind of giving you your middle of the road stock as well. Hold on just a second. And so why does this matter, right? It matters because it's going to give you a little bit more access and a little bit more information so you can start to focus. So you can focus on which products are driving growth and which products are holding you back. And this is going to help you optimize the inventory level of winners so you can maximize that revenue like I was talking about earlier. And then you can also eliminate lost sales from stockouts. I'm going to have another poll, and this one's going to be about winners and losers. So as we're thinking about this information that I'm showing you right now, how confident are you in your winners and losers process today? Are you 1, not super confident, 5, very confident, or do you fall somewhere in between? All right, looks like we have a bell curve around 3, somewhat confident, which makes sense. Couple 1s, a couple 5s, but glad to see. Thank you so much for participating. And even if you are really confident, think about just the time save that you could have having this information available, being able to click into a report, rather than maybe doing some Excel and pivot tables like I was talking about earlier. And then again, you can do this by location. Lastly, on this page, we have our stock trend graph. And I think this is really cool, A, because I'm a little bit more visual, but B, this is going to tell you this inventory health. This is going to give you a real-time snapshot. The stock trend is going to actually tell you that story over time and how you're actually dialing this in. our graph is great. We want this, we want the stock outs and we want the lost revenue to be going to zero, right? Because then I was telling you that that's capturing a little bit more profit, thus putting it in your pocket and you're not missing out on those lost sales. However, if we scroll a little bit farther, we can see our overstock value has risen over time. So that's an indicator for me that I should be digging probably further into this issue. Am I losing, is there sales? Are my sales down for any reason in particular? Have I actually are accidentally overordered? Likely not necessarily something to do with my smart reorder because that is going to focus on actually driving this number down. So this is probably going to give me an indicator of something that I should be looking more into. Perfect. With that, let's go ahead and I'm going to do one more poll. And it's not necessarily, it's more of like a summary of, kind of what we've gone over so far. And I just kind of want to ask what feature so far seems most useful to you. So far, we've gone over inventory health, over and under stock, winners and losers, and the stock trend graph. And it looks like a couple folks are interested mostly in winners and losers insights, as well as the over and under stock reporting. Awesome. And just know that, like I said, this is more of a summary of what we've gone over so far. So definitely a lot of really cool data, a lot of really cool features available to you to empower you to make those better business decisions. Thank you again for participating. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Awesome. So like I said, we just went over all the new insights available to you to show you the health of your inventory. And now the big question is, how do we fix it? So like I said, ForesightAI is designed to fix a very big problem: what to reorder, when to reorder, and how much. And this is where smart reorder comes into the picture. So taking a step back, ForesightAI uses your previous sales order history, a bunch of algorithms, and AI to calculate your reorder quantity. Not only that, it's relying on your purchase order periods and lead times to help with when to order and also the order amount as well. So there's a huge complexity behind the number generated, and here are some ways that you may want to be viewing this specific smart reorder page. And I got to it by looking at by clicking on purchases on the left-hand side, and then we can see that we have smart reorder with this purple AI branding as well. And we will wait for it to load. Like I said, I'm in a demo environment, so it can take a little bit of time for my loading. Ideally, yours won't take so long. Okay, so we have the smart reorder screen and it's blank, but let's go ahead and go over the top, and you can also read more if you'd like to here when you get this set up on your account. So period is going to be when you want to order. You can see you can order today, this week, next month, this week, next month, or a custom period. So in this case, it's going to give you a suggestion of what you should order for this time period. So if I click on today, it's going to be a little bit narrow because it's only going to tell me what I should be ordering for that day. However, if I look at this week's, and this could be useful if you're trying to, hold on just a second. I'm getting logged out of all my accounts this morning. All right, and I will reshare my screen. Sorry about the technical difficulties today, everyone. All right, and we're back. Perfect. So like I was saying, we went to purchases and we went to smart reorder, and I was explaining about the purchase order period being today. And I was saying about this week versus today. Today is going to give you all of the suggestions of what you should be ordering today. This week is going to give you suggestions of what you should be ordering for the entire week, in case maybe you want to be cutting down on that time even further and just do all your ordering for the week, which I think can be kind of useful depending on how large your operation is. Reorder type is going to be the type of movement the stock is making. And I know that's very vague. What I mean by that is purchase is going to be a really simple purchase order. So getting that inventory from the supplier into your inventory, right? A transfer is going to be moving from different warehouses, and it's essentially going to be that internal movement of the stock. And then we also have assembly, which is going to be just that, an assembly or a production job in which you're transforming raw materials into a finished item. So these are going to be the type of prompts you have. If you're not somebody who uses assembly, it just won't have them for you. But essentially a way that a product might move around is you might have a purchase order for those raw materials prompted below, which I'll show you in a second. And then maybe you'll have a transfer to a production warehouse. and then you could have an assembly job triggered, and then you'll follow through the steps of the assembly job, and then you'll have it transferred to a store for the ultimate stock so that you can sell through. So that's kind of how like the movement around stock would work. Or you might just have something as simple as a purchase order. It goes to your warehouse and it gets sold. I mean, it really does cover a wide range of uses. You can also filter by supplier, and then you can filter by destination location. So in this case, I'm just going to show you what this week ordering would look like for just a simple supplier purchase order. And it looks like my demo environment is not going to let me work. Give me just a moment, folks. So I really would like to show you what it looks like. And let me see if I can get it to load. Awesome. Okay. Let me share my screen again. It looks like I just needed to log in yet again. Okay. So I did generate suggestions and it uploaded right here. And this is what your reorder or smart reorder screen would look like. So we have our location, where it's coming from, or sorry, where it's going to, where it's coming from, our product, our reorder date, how many we currently have, how many are on order, and then our reorder quantity. I'm going to click into reorder quantity because this is something editable. So this is going to be where that AI meets that human piece, and you're able to edit this. If you have maybe a stock out issue right now, there's probably some cash flow constraints that may prevent you from being fully stocked up immediately. So that's why we say to focus on your winners that are stocked out, because that's going to free up some more capital based on that lost revenue that you may be prone to. But there may be other reasons that you want to change the reorder quantity. So I just want to point this out as like something available to you. Maybe you're starting to sunset an item, so you don't want to have quite as many in stock. You don't necessarily mind selling through. With that, as far as what reordering looks like, I can click this for all reorders. I can unclick this if maybe I just want to click a few, but all I have to do is click reorder, and then it'll populate, it'll create a draft purchase order, and then all I have to do is approve it. So think about what a huge time save that is, not only in creating the purchase orders because it's going to be done for me, but also in calculating that reorder quantity. So really all you have to do in the beginning is kind of just check it, make sure that it looks about right. Click these buttons, reorder, done. So if you're someone who maybe spends a half a day downloading reports, you can see that this would be really, really valuable as a time save and probably as a headache save as well. Awesome. And then you can also switch over to transfers. What transfers should you be having this week? Going from this location to this location to this location, this product, and about how many should be moving, right? So really valuable there. And then an assembly job for this week. It's going to tell me my product, so my final good in the assembled version, and then how many I should be assembling at a time. And again, this will capture for production jobs as well. So that's the Smart Reorder screen. If you have any more questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A. We are going to move on to reporting though. So if we go to reports, you'll see that we have new ForesightAI reports to you available in purple. This is going to give us a sales forecast, our overstock report, our stockouts, and our winners and losers. Here's a pro tip for you though that you get because you've attended this webinar. Due to some constraints, like I said, within the reporting of core, I would definitely recommend downloading the winners and losers report into Excel to get better access to the information. Currently, it's in alphabetical order and doesn't allow for the best amount of grouping. So for the information that's there, so it's not as easily laid out as I would like it to be as somebody who's used the software. However, this is something that we're focusing or that we are working on. So hold tight. Hopefully that'll be cleaned up soon. But just wanted to give you that tidbit of information and kind of how I use the software. So next, we're going to go over some fine tuning for your account. So everything I've gone over so far is probably going to be stuff that you're using day to day. However, there's going to be a little bit of setup for everyone as any software goes. But some of the questions you might be asking are, what do you do if you have like labor as a SKU right now? How does that kind of fall into play? What about new items? What about SKUs that you're sunsetting? You're going to find this all under the forecast and settings tab under Smart Reorder. So if we go back to purchase, we go back to Smart Reorder, we have this forecast and settings. And I'll click into this. And if you've been following our ForesightAI journey, you may have seen this page before. This is going to be Foresight AI is not necessarily brand new, but it's a reiteration of Inventoro, something that we've been working with since about May. Okay, so we have this forecast screen, and that forecast is available to you as right. I just showed you that report, the sales forecast, but this is kind of cool because it does give you a more visual, like I said, I'm a visual person. So I really like this graph view, which is also available to you if you go here. And you can also do a couple pretty cool things with this graph. So first thing being, you can layer on these filters. So I can see, yes, how well my entire catalog is doing, but I could also get pretty granular by maybe looking at a specific warehouse, looking at a specific product, maybe even how a product is doing in a warehouse and how well it's performing. So for example, if I wanted to see finished goods, probably not changing too much, but I could see how it's doing and like how my finished goods are doing in my location 16, and then I could compare it to my 14. I have a lot of dummy data, so it's not necessarily going to look quite that great. So I won't show you, but it will be available to you in your environment. A couple other things you can change if you want this graph to be in quantity or USD. And then on the left-hand side, we have a couple figures. 123 is going to be your average sales increases. So essentially products that are performing really well in your year-over-year growth. So if I click on show products, it's going to show us our product, what type it is, our category, and really it's going to show us this increase in percentage. And it's going to go from highest to probably lower as far as like how much those sales have increased. So pretty cool to kind of like get deeper into that information. You can also export this as an XLS as well. Three, number of items most vulnerable to seasonal trends. I like to point this out and kind of talk about the Foresight AI data and what you need if you're going to use this software. So you need at least 6 months of data, but ideally 2 years so that you can start to track these seasonal trend items. Again, you may have an idea of what they are. They could be like something like bathing suits. People aren't necessarily probably purchasing those year round, or holiday decorations, right? Again, something that's only being purchased one time of the year. So Foresight AI is going to help you with that stock maybe problem that you could be having with those, whether it's a stock out or an overstock, because if you've overstocked, that's going to sit in your warehouse for an entire year. We don't necessarily want that because A, it's a waste in capital, as far as, like I said, tying up that 20 to 40% inventory or tying that 20 to 40% capital in that overstock amount, but it's also taking up space in your warehouse, right? So we don't necessarily want that to happen either. And then last, we have the 71% is the average sales forecast accuracy. So what that number means is based on the sales order history and what this green part of the graph looks like, it's basically saying how confident it is in being able to create a sales forecast off of that. So if your number's low, it's not necessarily something to worry about. The safety stock is just going to be a little bit higher, like it is here, to account for any stock outs that may occur in the future. And then, like I said, because it's also using that micro adjustments by constantly updating and syncing to your core data of your like real-time sales data, it'll constantly be making micro adjustments to this graph as well. The reason I like to point out the sales forecast accuracy is because I've already gone over what kind of goes into this projection, but the computer doesn't know what it doesn't know. So there's going to be cases where you may need to make a forecast adjustment for the future state so that you can make sure that you're stocked up correctly. So if I click on forecast adjustment, there's a couple ways I can do that. So Foresight AI is going to account for your year over year growth, but in cases of like a big marketing campaign or pairing with a new bigger distributor, that's going to be something that the computer won't be able to account for in the future. That's kind of where this comes in. So the change in percentage is going to be, like I said, that marketing campaign, something that's a little bit sharper of an increase or perhaps a decrease. And it's something that may mellow out or may smooth out over time, or it may go back to normal. As far as sales, a trend in percentage is something that's going to be a little bit more gradual. So that would be that opening a new store, pairing with a new distributor, etc. And then you can also do a change in quantity. So this can be on a SKU by SKU level, or you can make an adjustment based on a warehouse, a supplier, a category, a product, a brand, a collection, winners and losers, or the type of order. And then once you create them, this is what it looks like. So in this case, I have that change in percentage. So a marketing campaign, And we can see it's a social media campaign. These are the dates for it to run through. And I love having the notes. I highly recommend utilizing that feature. That way you can keep track of what adjustment means what. I will say, well, if we're talking about, again, that number about the 63% inventory accuracy due to human error, I would say try not to do too many of these forecast adjustments in the future, because then you're more relying on your forecast as opposed to that AI driven forecast. And then, it's not going to have the software be used quite as effectively. So just something to note as you're maybe making forecast adjustments in the future. So what I really wanted to focus on this side was the fine tuning, and that's going to be all under this edit arena. So if we click on edit arena, if I click on a product and I can search it, then it's going to populate right here on the bottom and go through the features that are available to you. So we have our product, we have our supplier, and then we have our warehouse. Again, this goes by location. So just note this is the same product, but I have two of them based on each location. So as I'm making adjustments, I can make it by location on each of these, individual rows, or I can make a change for both rows, which would make a change for the item. So first is I'm able to create a minimum order quantity here, really helpful. How many come in a package, I can set that up. So if we're talking about like a dozen eggs, I would put 12 here, come in a carton. And then we have our orderability and visibility. So like I was talking about earlier with like, what do you do about like labor as a stock, labor maybe as a SKU or a line item? How do you like account for stuff like that? So this would be that orderability and visibility. Orderability is going to take it out of smart reorder or your replenishment, but you'll be able to track it under your forecast as well as your winners and losers. This is going to be particularly helpful in uses like custom furniture. Right, that's not something that you're necessarily going to want to have on hand because it's custom, right? That could be overstock and it could be sitting there for quite some time. Or maybe you'll never sell through it. But with custom furniture, you're still going to maybe want to see it in the forecast in case you want to do future planning with the raw materials. And you probably want to see if it's still a winner or loser and see how well it's performing. Um, Visibility is going to take it out of Foresight AI software altogether. And that would be something like labor or water, right? Water, you're probably just paying your water bill. That's not necessarily something that you need to have on hand or ordering. You probably don't need to see in the forecast, and you don't need to see in winners and losers. Same with labor, right? Winners and losers, you probably don't need to see that labor is likely a winner if you use quite a bit of it. We also have a created date when the item was created, minimum and maximum inventory. I touched on it briefly in my forecast or when I was pointing this out, but that safety stock is something right now that Foresight AI is calculating for you. In times of higher sales, you'll have a little bit more safety stock to account for any any more sales beyond the forecast to ensure that you're not missing out on that lost revenue. Times where you have a little bit less sales or a little bit lower of a sales forecast, you can allow to have a little bit more safety stock on hand because likely you're not going to go through the roof with sales forecasts. Again, allowing you to have a little bit leaner of stock in your warehouse. However, you can override that by having a minimum and a maximum inventory if you would like. Expiration in days. I just want to point out that this doesn't necessarily track batches, but it can help plan for expiration dates for food and bev or health and beauty. So it would be in days, you can just like pop in like maybe 14 days if it's 2 weeks. That way, Foresight AI can help with that planning as well. We also have purchase period and lead times. Purchase period I touched on briefly earlier, and that's going to be how frequently you order. So, purchase period being I purchase every 30 days. I purchase every week, 7 days. So if this will be set up on a supplier level, but if you have a one-off for one specific SKU, you can set that up here. Lead time is going to be how long it takes you to actually receive the good. So from submitting your purchase order to actually putting it in your inventory. And then we have volume, weight, and a couple other cool features right here. So predecessor is going to be really awesome in allowing you to create a forecast for a new product. So ideally, I talked about Foresight AI needs at least 6 months of data, but ideally 2 years. However, what about new products? New products need 90 days, but with this predecessor feature, you can link an old product to a new product. For product blank, for product, 287, I can choose a predecessor. So saying, okay, I have product 204. That's really similar. I'm going to go ahead and link it, and then it'll automatically start using that sales forecast. And then with that AI and those micro adjustments, it'll start to make those micro adjustments to the forecast so that it's individualized to the product. And then lastly, we have these replenishment recommendations, and this is going to be how you want that smart reorder, what logic you want to be behind it. Automatic is going to put in all of the factors in Foresight AI. So, this purchase order period, the lead times, sales forecast, inventory forecast, etc. So most folks tend to stick with automatic. Replenishment using sales forecast is going to be a little bit more heavy on the sales forecast. So that means it's just a little bit more or less on that safety stock. Replenishment using minimum inventory, that is if you did set that minimum inventory over here. Once you dip below it, it'll trigger a replenishment. And then we have replenish using customer orders. If you're someone who doesn't want to have a bunch of stock on hand and you have maybe quick turnaround times, this would be I'm only having a smart reorder replenishment triggered once a customer actually orders that material. So that would be what that would look like. Like I said, most folks tend to use automatic when using Foresight AI. Okay, that about wraps up the edit arena and pretty much wraps up my presentation for today. I like this slide because it does give you, if you're a numbers person, it'll give you kind of a breakdown of what Foresight AI is going to do for you. But if there's anything I can leave you with today, let me leave you with this. Foresight AI's advanced forecasting empowers businesses with affordable, intuitive tools to unlock efficiency, free up inventory capital, and never miss a sale. So if you like the information we went over today, please feel free to take advantage of our Foresight AI new sign-up offer. For the first 300 participants, we're giving away 6 months, 50% off, as well as access to free onboarding, which is a $750 value. So please do not delay if you're interested in this. You can sign up for Foresight AI under your subscription tab in Core. Please feel free to stick around and ask any questions in the Q&A. We will be sending out a copy of the recording and a follow-up email. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining and have a wonderful day. Let's go ahead and get to some questions. So it looks like... First question, how do you account for the difference in purchase order, shipping costs, and costs for different order quantities? So if we go into our smart reorder, so this is going to, if I have my merge suggestions on and we look at maybe suggestions for this week, it's going to combine any of the products that are by a supplier all onto one purchase order. So if you have a bunch of items that come from supplier A, it's going to put that all into one PO, thus saving you time, or thus likely saving you some of that money on those shipping costs. And unit cost for different order quantities. I think I might need a little bit more on your question, but essentially the way that it's going to work is it's going to group by supplier, and then you'll have that all on one purchase order, and then you'll have that reorder quantity, either what's suggested or maybe your edited amount, and then it'll create that draft purchase order. Oh, okay. So if you're talking about someone who maybe has a certain amount, thank you for expanding on your question. For example, if you buy a 500 units, it costs $1, and if you buy 1,000 units, it costs 70 cents. So that's where you're going to have to probably edit that reorder quantity. There's not necessarily a way for the system to account for those changes in price if you change different amounts of if you order different amounts. So we're going to have this price right here, and that's not necessarily going to change based on those. You can change the price though if you get to that certain tier, but there's not necessarily a way for the system to account for that. So that is a limitation at this time, but I know that that's something that the product team is aware of. So I think that they're going to come up with a fix for that, and that's on their roadmap, but I don't have an ETA on that. Can we use CSV or Excel file to overwrite, adjust the setup on forecast setup? I'm working with thousands of SKUs. So not necessarily. If we're looking at smart reorder and we're looking at this forecast and settings, you don't necessarily want to override this forecast because that's kind of what you're paying this software to do, is come up with this forecast for you. So if you're overriding it, then it's not necessarily going to be incredibly useful, if that makes sense. If you're working with thousands of SKUs, we do have under this edit arena, if you're trying to make those bulk edits, we do have an edit arena template that you can import and make a bunch of bulk edits for. So I would say that that would be useful to you. But as far as using this forecast, I would make those minor adjustments like I was talking about, but there isn't necessarily a way to import your own forecast. Okay, someone said we keep a long priority list with our core manufacturer. They need to see our future orders for months in advance as they need to purchase materials ahead of time. How do you generate monthly order volumes of items looking into the future? Yeah, that was a great question. So if we go into our smart reorder, there's two ways that you can do this. The first one is you could look at that custom amount. So if you have like those really long lead times, truthfully, if you have really long lead times, you can set those up and then it'll come up as like, okay, this week I need to order. And then maybe you're not getting it for a while, so you could put in that order early. Or you could look at that custom range on what you should be ordering in a month. And then you can, if I want to do that, generate suggestions, although this is going to be just for the next 3 days. But then it'll generate suggestions this way, and then you could have that draft PO and you can send it over to your supplier. Alternatively, and I think this is a really cool feature, if we go into Smart Reorder, forecast and settings, and if you actually click into, oh, it would actually, we used to have a feature that would allow your suppliers to look into this environment, but I think with the embedded experience, it's gone away. So that's what I would do. I would look at that custom date range of when you're looking to place that order in the future. And then I would create that draft PO. Don't do anything with the draft PO, but you can print it out and you can send it to your supplier. Any other questions? Oh, perfect. Can we tie items together? I.e., some items are sold more when their other parent is sold and the item is an add-on. Can items be married that way so the sales forecast on one affects the other so that you're making some adjustments to the editor and the parent trickles down? This is going to be a SKU by SKU editing. So if we go to Smart Reorder and we go to that forecast in the settings, so the forecasts are going to be tied together if the sales are tied together. So what I mean by that is if one impacts the other, the sales order history, the system is going to recognize that those are kind of in tandem. And so it is probably going to give you a sales forecast for both of them in a similar way because they're just naturally tied together. As far as editing, though, there isn't necessarily a way to tie items together so that when you make an edit to one, it trickles down to an edit to the other. That being said, if we're taking a step back with Foresight AI, this is really just that reordering process for you and ensuring that, big picture, what Foresight AI is trying to do is ensure that you have the right amount of materials or the right amount of goods to match your sales forecast in the correct place. So it's not necessarily going to track like that type of editing, but you can still do that in like the regular core platform. And if you make any adjustments to that, those products then to a certain extent that would carry over as well. Great questions. Any more questions? And if you have questions later, like I said, I'm going to be sending out a copy of this recording and you'll have access to my email. So if you have any questions that you think of in a little bit, you're more than welcome to ask questions that way. Okay, I gave you a couple extra seconds in case any more Q&A came in, but it looks like we're clear, so I'll go ahead, and we only have a few minutes left anyway. But I just want to thank you so much for attending today. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the engagement as well with the polls and the Q&A. If you have any questions, again, I'm going to be sending out a copy of this recording, as well as you'll have access to my email for any questions. If you want to move forward, feel free to subscribe under your subscription tab in Core. You'll get a welcome email with access to that onboarding. But once again, thank you so much for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.